What's up, my pungios? Andy with Andy Vlogs. Decided to share with you guys this content. As the title suggests, we're going to be reviewing today the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. Now, as you guys may have watched previously, I have been a huge Android fanboy. I recently just switched to the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and I have not regretted it. Now, you're probably thinking, why are you reviewing an Android? Well, my wife broke her phone, and so I thought might as well upgrade and get her something interesting. So we're gonna go head to head. We're gonna compare all of the cameras, all of the zoom, all of the photography, all of the cinematography, low light, video recording, audio. We're gonna show you low light situations. We're gonna show you high contrast situations. We're gonna try to get good portrait shots, good portrait video. We're gonna do macro. We're gonna do the ultra 100x zoom, all that jazz and more. We're mainly going to be reviewing those aspects of the phone. Let's go ahead and let's show you the overhead view of S21 Ultra 5G unboxing. All right, got that pesky tape off. There's the reveal. It's being obscured by some weird branding. I don't know what this thing is. Not sure what that is. Well, there it is. There she is. Galaxy S21 Ultra. Now, the last Samsung that I used was the S10 Ultra or the S10 Pro or whatever. And so this is going to be a huge step up. That peel is so satisfying. That peel is so satisfying. There's also a peel on this like plateau 5 camera array, which is like protruding a 1/8 of an inch out of the phone. This is some crazy stuff, but there it is. Over and inside this box should come with a little bit of information as well as the cord. Now, I am very disappointed because the Samsung does not come with a plug. It's very, very frustrating that that is a thing. Let's go ahead now and let's show you the differences between the two devices. Here they are side by side. Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra is a little bit taller. However, the iPhone is a little bit wider. As far as thickness goes, both of them have a substantial camera bump. However, the Galaxy S21 takes the cake because it's like literally this ledge that's gigantic. On the front, you've got a little tiny punch out for the front facing camera, whereas on the iPhone, you've got this, big old speaker punch out as well as its own sensor for, the face detection as well as the front facing camera. As far as the camera arrays, you can see here on the iPhone, you've got 3 as well as LiDAR, which I think is a 4th camera. You've got the other sensor as well as the flash. On the Galaxy S21 Ultra, you've got the 3 camera array. You got the ultra wide, the wide, and the Tele, as well as the 10x Tele, which is supposed to give you a really good 30x, and then obviously it can digitally zoom. Then you've got this infrared, which gives you depth sensor, I think. So you technically have 4 cameras on the Samsung, and then you've got your flash as well. All right, folks, now that we've got them turned on, I'm going to go ahead and set up my account and jump into it. With that said, let's go and move on to some of our first tests. Pungios, Andy on location here. We're going to be testing out, obviously, the 2 different devices. I've got this abomination in front of me that I picked up. You can check out the video in the cards or down below in my video recommendations. This is from SmallRig. It's a case for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I've got here this little connector that's going to give you, the double view. And so we're going to go ahead and test a myriad of different ways that these devices differ or that they're similar to. Notwithstanding, basically shooting in all conditions that I can think of. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into this. I'm going to be shooting in 4K and then down-resing it everything into 1080p because that's what I originally shot in. And so I'm also going to be taking 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second, down-resing it all the way down to 1080p and 30 frames a second. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to do any kind of post-production. I'm not going to do any kind of tuning, contrast. I'm not going to do any of that. It's just going to hit record at 4K, 30, 60, 120, whatever the different features are, and I'll have them down below here notated. As far as pictures as well, there's going to be no post-processing or editing. I'm just going to take them side by side in a very myriad of different locations and low light and situations in the sun and whatnot. And I'll have all of their settings as well notated next to their pictures as well. Okay, we're gonna start off with just the base photo. We're gonna go just on the photo on both the iPhone and the Samsung. They're both set at 4:3 resolution at their base resolution, max resolution at 4:3, except on the Samsung I don't have it at the 108 megapixel. I'm just gonna point and shoot, take a shot. You'll be able to see those as they are in there. You can tell that the camera looks pretty good. It is a little blown out, I feel like, on the Samsung, a little over contrasty. The low lights you can see, near the fence and in the shadow there, that it actually does get, pretty good detail. There is some compression going on at the fence where it goes into the sky, but all in all, I think right here it's a pretty straightforward shot. I feel like it's a little bit softer on the iPhone 12. Now we're going to go ahead and zoom in to the base zoom. So for the iPhone it's going to be 2.5. For the Samsung it's going to be 3 times zoom. I'm going to square it up, take a shot, square it up, take a shot. There, you're going to notice here that on the iPhone I feel like it's performing not as well. On the Samsung you've got the dedicated 3.0 telephoto lens, which I feel like is a better camera from Sony, I believe, even though the camera lenses from Apple are from Sony, but I've never liked the Tele on the iPhone. Moving up, we're going to go ahead and zoom as far as we can on the iPhone. That's going to be 12x on that Tele lens. On the Samsung you can actually go 10x. There are 2 Tele lenses. There is basically the 3x and the 10x, that allows you to get the extra zoom ability. So we're going to go ahead and zoom into 30x to see. It's very, very impressive. When you tap to focus, it actually utilizes the image stabilization and also uses digital stabilization to be able to get you a clear shot when you're zooming in at that 30x. Let's go ahead and zoom again now all the way up to the max. That's 100x. Once you find your spot that you want to zoom on, it will, within the software, it'll just kind of focus it. So I focused on the Sony. Let's go ahead now and show you our wide. On Samsung, the wide is at 0.6x, whereas the iPhone is going to be 0.5x. So you're going to get about a 16 millimeter or 14 millimeter on the iPhone, whereas about a 16 millimeter on the Samsung. I'm not too pleased with the way that the iPhone actually utilizes the wide as opposed to the Samsung. The Samsung is a lot more contrasty, you can tell. You can tell there's a lot more saturation, and it doesn't blow out a lot of the light when you're pointed up against the sun. You can get the detail in all the chip paint, and you can also even see some of the grain, which is crazy. Let's go ahead now and move to portrait mode. Portrait mode is really where I think the iPhone really shows off its true colors. Here is the iPhone with portrait, just regular 2.5x. On the portrait here, on the Samsung we've got it on the zoom, so I think it's at the 2x. I'm going to change to the wide portrait now on the Samsung, and shooting it against that tripod, it looks really, really odd where it hyper blurs the background, whereas on the iPhone you're going to get more of a natural depth of field. I feel like that is just, I don't like how that looks. It's just over blurred. I feel like it's digitally blurred there. You're not getting any kind of a depth here. And then once you zoom into the camera itself, you can see that there is some weird compression going on at the edges of the Sony as well as the edges where the little rabbit's foot is. Okay, let's look at the portrait features. On the portrait features, I feel like the portrait here on the iPhone is much better. I feel like you've got all of these different toggles here that kind of make the, I don't know, the experience better. And it gives you, again, in my opinion, a better portrait experience. You're utilizing, better depth of field rather than a digital blur like I feel like you're getting on the Samsung. Over on the Samsung here, you can see again what I was talking about. You've got that weird like hyper blur, but then the subject there gets really sharp. Zooming in, again, it feels a little bit too blurry, but once you go into the picture itself, you can change the background effect, and you can lessen the blur or make it more blurry, which is something that you can do on the iPhone as well, which I won't mess with. Going here to the iPhone, we're gonna tap that image, and you cannot make that post adjustment here. So that's a difference between the two devices. Okay, so Samsung has a dedicated night option where obviously it deals with pictures that are taken at night. iPhone has it built in, so when you get to a low light situation, it's going to pop that night configuration. There is a tennis ball underneath the stairs that you still get some good color to, even despite the low light. I don't think it's true a night shot, because there is some blowout there where the cement is. When you look on the iPhone, I feel like it gives you a little bit more color. You're able to get a little bit more detail in that cement as opposed to the Samsung. I could be wrong. You let me know what you think. Samsung has this single take feature where your phone automatically captures the best moments within that shot. And so we're going to go ahead and just demonstrate that right now. I'm just going to hit the single take button, and it's going to catch meaningful moments as I move closer to the camera and go back, and I'm going to see what it ends up doing here. I'm not doing anything on the iPhone. It seems like it's having a hard time stabilizing per se, but I mean, this is going to be just kind of how you would generally use this single take. So let's review what the single take did. Okay, I guess this is the single take. Okay, so it pulled, hold on, it pulled this picture, it pulled a GIF. I'm not sure what it's doing here, but it's creating a meaningful, oh wow, it's got all these different options here. You got a 7-second kind of recap of what happened. You've got an extra filter there. When I started backing up, it took a picture. It created this chroma kind of feel. It made a GIF. As I moved about, it added a filter to this one, giving you kind of like an old vintage look. Here's a lower light situation. Here's a video of me walking up to the camera and then coming back. With that said, let's go ahead and do panoramas. I want to compare the panos and see how well they go. It looks like the pano is making me... Okay, so just from the offset for the panorama, it looks like it only uses 2 cameras. You've got your ultra wide and your wide. Wide seems to be the best option here. For the iPhone, you've got use of all 3 cameras. You got your 2.5, 1, and 1.5x. Let's go ahead and just do 1x wide. I'm going to start with the Samsung and go with the iPhone. Let's see how it takes. Alright, the iPhone is not responding because it's requiring me to hold it vertical instead of horizontal. We're going to stop there. Let's turn the camera now. I want it to do it the other way. There we go. Panorama. It's going to be different because it's, again, vertical as opposed to horizontal. You can do horizontal on the Samsung. Maybe I should just do it that way. But let's show off how they look here. I'm kind of impressed. They both look about the same. It's capturing good detail on the fence. It looks like, again, the iPhone is going to be softer. The Samsung is much more contrasty, but the saturation on the iPhone appears to be, more. That it appears that the pool is very much better contrast, and it almost looks warped on the Samsung. So I might give this one to the iPhone. The iPhone seems to be, getting more detail, especially in the darks of that pool. You're able to see those leaves a little more clearer and not have so much digital noise thing. I'm going to go ahead and take two different pictures on the photo at 1x. On the iPhone, it's going to be the highest megapixel. I think it's 24 megapixels. And then we're going to do the 108 on the Samsung. So the way that you do it here is by going to, this 4.3 and then tapping the megapixel 108 megapixel. So it'll let me. There we go. So I'm just going to frame it, tap it, camera. But let's take a look at this here just from the viewfinder on your phone by zooming in. What kind of detail we get? I can keep zooming on the Samsung, meaning that this picture is gigantic. I mean, look at that. That's just 108 megapixels lined up. Now, whether those pixels are the highest quality is to be determined, but as I zoom out, you can tell the difference there in quality. You're getting a lot more detail and a lot more sharpness. I think you're going to lose out on depth of field if you're going to be taking these really high res pictures on your Samsung. But that's just a cursory glance here. I just literally tapped one photo. I mean, I could be completely wrong here. And feel free to let me know in the comments there if I am. Now we're going to go ahead and switch over to video. I'm just going to tap video on both of them. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and again put it on the wide lens, the 1x. And we're just going to take some video. We're going to be focusing on the stabilization. We're going to be focusing on any screen tearing, and again, this is on 4K, 30 frames a second for both of them. Alrighty, I've hit record, and we're just going to go walk around. I'm going to try to keep as stable as I can. We're going to go in different light circumstances, and then I'm going to show you obviously the difference in the mics. So right now, you can hear my neighbor's dogs barking. This is on the Samsung microphone. Stabilization on the iPhone is superb. At least on the camera that I can see here, the low light is much better. I'm getting a lot more, I guess, contrast in that fence as opposed to the Samsung. The Samsung seems like it's, it's focusing on the light that's coming in between the fence, and it's making the fence a little bit darker. But that could just be the true color here. Getting closer up here, videoing here, this, I don't know, these little hooks. You're getting good detail as I move it about. I still feel like the Samsung is a little less stable, even though it does have the optical image stabilization. It's not like the sensor stabilization of the iPhone. The Samsung Sky, though, however, looks so rich. The contrast between the house roof and onto the sky is so much richer. I think it's not a bad experience here. Now shoot into the light and see how it looks. Walking with that sunlight, aiming it up in the sky. Seems fine to me. Now we're gonna come down here to the shadows of the tree. The ice here, you should see some sparkling from the sun as it bounces off the snow and the ice. And as I transition back and forth, the Samsung just isn't keeping up with the stability of the iPhone. That is quite interesting here. The iPhone did just jitter there as I stepped uncomfortably, uncontrollably around. we're gonna go and zoom in and try to get, you know, a little more macro on this. You can see here on the Samsung, I feel like it's keeping more true to color there. Whereas the iPhone, it is giving you a good depth of field as the fence is being blurred, but it is sharpening the image a little bit. As you look at the sky, again, the sky color is so much richer on the Samsung. Pointing up, as we get higher up, you're able to see the stabilization is fantastic on the iPhone. On these now, the stabilization is so good on the iPhone until it gets to that Tele, and I need to fix this a little bit. There we go. Samsung is a little bit more reasonable here. On that 3X, ooh, when we turn like that, it kind of makes me a little nauseous. As we walk here and moving into the lower light behind my house, the stabilization just isn't as good on that Samsung. That is a little disappointing. The iPhone, again, it's having the contrast and brightness a little bit more, whereas the Samsung, because it's punched in a little bit more, it is focusing on the light of the house in the back more than actually the detail of the fence. You can tell that as it's transitioning and doing that auto adjusting of the aperture, it's not as clean on the Samsung. We're gonna move up the house now to get you the difference here. Still, I feel like the Samsung's struggling. I mean, even with this handheld stabilizer, I feel like the iPhone is just doing such a better job. Again, there is a difference in the magnification and zoom of these lenses. The Samsung is the 3.0, the iPhone is a 2.5, so there is that difference, but both of them are that Tele lens that they are touting. Now, as we zoom into this tree, you're noticing that you are getting the good depth of field as it's trying to grab focus on the main subject. The iPhone, I feel like, is doing a little bit better now. It's starting to focus on the fence here. Let's show you some shots of my family. There's my wife and my children, and we're going to walk up to them. The iPhone is keeping, as best it can, stabilization, but that Samsung is just wobbling. I wonder if it's something within the software that it can fix. But I'm getting some non-stable footage here. Let's now get you a little bit more of a contrasty circumstance as I walk. The iPhone is struggling there, same with the Samsung. Let's go ahead and stabilize it, and now at this low light situation, the Samsung is just, look at that. You can hardly even see the tree on the Samsung. On the iPhone, it's getting good clarity and richness. Once we transition to the sky, then the tree blows out. As we hit the sun, it becomes dark. But I think it's still, these are, you know, really good situations that you'll be in when you're trying to film and whatnot. Let's get a little more odd looking subject here. You got a squirt gun and rocks and ice and snow. Moving over to the grass, it's a little shaky on that Samsung, but on the iPhone you've got some pretty good stabilization. Stabilizing this ultra wide. So we're going to move back again to the back of my fence, saying hello to our neighbor's dogs. And I feel like the Samsung's doing a way better job stabilizing that wide. I mean, if you noticed, it kind of jittered with the iPhone, walking back and forth. Now I'm backing up. It's still maintaining, again, that good contrast that you're looking for in a low light situation, especially when you've got, you know, sky above it that's brighter than your subject that you're shooting. With the Samsung, I feel like it's doing a great job stabilizing. Okay, so as we go up the house, You're getting a little bit wider shot again on the iPhone because it's a 0.5x. It's going to be probably a 14 millimeter as opposed to a 16. But the Samsung's doing a great job. It's making those tones super rich in the sky. I think it's making it much lighter and brighter blue than the iPhone. We're going to walk back into the sun and see how it does as it adjusts focus and aperture and whatnot. I think the iPhone's doing much better. You can tell that the darks of that patio pergola were much darker than they were on the iPhone. The iPhone was able to keep the grass color in a good, it not blowing it out with the exposure, but as we come to this tree here, same kind of a thing. I feel like the low light for the iPhone is just better. It's darker on the Samsung, and I don't know if that's just like the built-in adjustment photo computation that it does, but I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm not trying to be an Apple fanboy here. I've had Samsung my whole life, but I mean, make no mistake, I think it's just a better experience. Now we're going to use the ultra wide by getting closer to a few subjects here to see what kind of focus it does. The ultra wide zoomed in, see what kind of texture we can get on this fence as it peels and it's rotting. I think it makes for an interesting experience here. We're going to go ahead and zoom up on this nail and this paint that's kind of chipping away, and it seems like it's able to pull focus just fine there. And then we're going to kind of circle back to the back of my home. Okay, so now I want to demonstrate the stability and the fidelity of the camera as it switches from each lens. This is one thing that I've been super negative to iPhone about, is because it jumps between cameras. With the Samsung, at least the Samsung I had, the 10, it did better. So let's see how it does comparatively. We're going to put them both on the ultra wide, and from the Samsung we're going to start and zoom in. It only gives us, again, all the way up to 20x, and it kind of hiccups, but I can't do it all in one go like I can on the iPhone. But let's slowly go from the 0.5. You can see now it kind of hiccups. As soon as we hit the 3x, it's a little more subtle. It hiccups. Then as we get to the 10x, you can see it kind of hiccups from the 9 to 10, and then it gets all the way to 20x, which is kind of interesting. And you can get somewhat of a focus there as it comes back. But why don't we go all the way to 20x, and then we'll hit the wide and see what it does. So you can see it kind of hiccups 3 times. On the iPhone, let's do the iPhone zoom. It seems like it's a little bit better, a little bit smoother. This beam, we're only going to 7x. But you see that, like when I go fast, it goes, even at like 7x, in some circumstances, the wide is going to be digitally zooming in, and then it's going to hit the Tele. And it's going to be slow. So let's slow that down, go from the 1. That was a pretty good transition. Then to the Tele, no good, and so on. So let's go ahead then and let's zoom all the way up and go back to wide. I mean, that's pretty clean. That's pretty clean, I'd say. Alrighty, so there's a couple more features on the video side here. We're going to do the slow-mo on each one of them. The Samsung has a slow-mo. The iPhone has a slow-mo. Samsung has an ultra slow-mo. And again, this is going to be putting these pictures at 120 frames a second. It's going to take the video at 1080p. So let's go ahead and try both of these out. It looks like on the Samsung, the slow-mo only allows you wide lens. You're not able to switch between the lenses, and it's a static shot. You can't zoom on this mode, whereas on the iPhone, you've got the ability to do, the 120, 1080p on all lenses, which is great. I think that's going to be a big deal for those action sports people. Let's go ahead now and see what stabilization is like on the 1080p 120 frames a second. Again, outputted at 30 frames a second. So you tell me what it looks like as far as the slow motion. Doherty, do you want to do something that's interesting? Why don't you jump up in the air?
I found sushis.
With your arms, like flail your arms.
Like what?
Just go, wow, like a jumping jack. Okay, let me zoom back a little bit. Why don't you kick some snow in the air? Okay, ready? Hold on. Let me get close. Okay, you're gonna kick not at me, you're gonna kick out.
So much snow just goes
Kick right here. Kick right there. Yeah, just so that gets you a really cool look there as both videos are being slow mode to 120 frames a second. That gets you a really cool look there as both videos are being slow mode to 120 frames a second. That's like an 8x slow-mo, and you can see each individual ice kernel kind of flying as it's kicked out. I didn't have a good position for both of them because again they're offset by a little bit of a space, but I think both of them do a great job. Both of them aren't really good in low light. Both of them I feel like are punched in. Nonetheless, I think it's better with the iPhone because you can zoom in using the 2x, 2.5x, or the wide 0.5 and zoom up. So go ahead and do that kick again, Doherty, if you don't mind. We're gonna get real close with the iPhone. Kick your foot, kick right there. At the 20 frames a second, and then one more. We're going to get it at the 2.5x. Go ahead and kick right here. Okay. So the iPhone has a time-lapse function which is geared towards setting your phone down on a tripod and letting the sun go by. On the Samsung, it's actually got a hyperlapse. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to do a lap kind of around the house. We're going to put them on both on the wide lens here, and then we're just going to do it. And I think, honestly, before I even get into it, I think the Samsung is going to do much better, as it always has. The iPhone has never had a good time lapse, but let's go ahead and show those features off right now. Donnie, if you want to follow me, you can. It looks like the stabilization is pretty good on the Samsung. I mean, it kind of looks like it's bobbling a lot. That's just because of the way I have the camera, but it seems like it punches in as well a lot from the viewfinder. But I mean, that's a viewable hyperlapse. I think it's not a bad idea. The iPhone, on the other hand, it sped it too much. The auto function of it just made it way too fast, and you can't comprehend all of the stuff. But on the alright, the Samsung shot a 17-second hyperlapse. The iPhone shot a 12-second hyperlapse stuff. But on the hyperlapse in the iPhone, you can actually modify it manually and tell it what you want. So take it with a grain of salt. I liked the Samsung better because it slowed it down. It's not as fast. And ideally for hyperlapses, you want to have between like a 4 to 5 times as fast of a shot there. Okay, so let's go ahead and shift gears over to the photo. I've taken a couple pictures. It looks like the photo has two different options here on the iPhone and on the Samsung. Both of them are like a single selfie and then like a group selfie, and they barely zoom out digitally. Well, they zoom in and then they zoom out, obviously. They zoom in digitally and then they zoom out to the normal millimeterage of the camera. Both of them are, both of them look pretty decent. I don't hate selfies, or at least the selfie camera. It's not something that I like doing. I don't take lots of selfies of myself, so I don't really have much to say, but it's definitely pretty comparable. Both of the cameras have, you know, decent exposure, as well as, you know, it does its computational photography, extra like beautifying, which I'm not too keen about. I've got some blemishes on my face that it's actively like fixing and touching up, which I don't like. With that said, let's go ahead and move over to video. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to be shooting both of them in, you know, 4K 30 and then down-resing them. I don't have a good way to be able to give you an equal shot because of the difference between the camera lenses, but just on the offset here, it looks like my face is, you know, much more rich on the iPhone, which I don't like. It's adding this beautification to my face that I don't really want, whereas on the Samsung, I feel like I've got more of a natural look. I've got this really harsh light from the sun, you know, making shadows and whatnot, and I feel like it's giving me a better true to my skin tone. With that said, you know, videoing here, both of them are not uber stabilized. I mean, when you're doing a vlog, I'm holding this out arm's length, and I feel like the iPhone has, you know, a better true feel, meaning that it's not as punched in, whereas the Samsung, I feel like I'm punched in, and that's because the Samsung is doing a better job stabilizing. The iPhone has a terrible stabilization for that front facing. You can see it shakes so much on the iPhone, whereas the Samsung is not shaking as much. I mean, it's giving you a better look here. I'm walking behind my house again, like I typically do, and the iPhone is giving me, in this lower light or this shadowed circumstance, I've got richer tones here in my face, more reds. On the Samsung, I've got more of a flat profile. Looking back here at the sky, I feel like the iPhone now is kind of punching the saturation in the sky more than the iPhone is, or the Samsung is. Now we're walking into the sun, where the lens is obviously into the sun, and it's getting, you know, the shot that you can see. I feel like the iPhone's doing a better job of, you know, getting the lights in my face, whereas the Samsung, it seems to be pretty dark. There is actually a really cool feature here on the Samsung that I'm glad they brought back. It's called the director's view. When I was first vlogging back in 2015, there was this function on the Samsung, I think it was the 8 that I had, where you could basically, you know, do a picture-on-picture view of both cameras. You do lose out on some of the ability to zoom on the director's view, but I've always liked being able to like capture your kids and then also capture the director themselves who's goofing around with the kids. It's something that I'm glad that they brought back, that I'm looking forward to in the future. As far as the director's view, you've got 3 different options here. You can go to the 3x Tele to zoom in. You can do the wide and then the ultra wide right in camera as you're filming. And I think that's cool. You should be able to swap them back. You can move the thumbnail here, but I don't think in the camera you can switch back and forth. It doesn't appear you can. Alright, Pungos, well, that's about it. As many of the features on the camera that I wanted to focus on. Again, for me, the camera is the main thing. All the other are ancillary. With that said, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and with any vlog, signing out.